as it says, a book to celebrate Black, Caribbean, and African history in Ealing. So just a little bit of an introduction, just to explain where this book idea came from. And so when I have to fill in a form, I just put journalist on it because it seems to cover all things, and that will kind of explain a bit later. Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. That will kind of explain. Yes, very good. That will kind of explain a bit later on something that's gone wrong with this. Not wrong, but something I've had to change about the book. So that I'm trying to explain. I'm not a historian. I'm not a writer. So the angle I'm coming at this book with is from like a journalist angle. You know, I'm trying to share information. I'm not trying to write beautiful prose and poetry and yes, I painted the cover artwork, and yes, there's some InDesign work to put the book together, but it's not really intended to be a work of art. It's more to be functional,
yes,
convey information in the most efficient manner. So I do have a Caribbean background. I came from Trinidad and Tobago. I worked at the Trinidad Express, the Voice of St. Lucia, Jamaica Observer. When I came up here, moved around to different organizations, but I spent the most time at the Financial Times. Did my journalism and sociology degrees in Jamaica and here in London. And since I've been in Ealing, my work is with the Ealing Business Expo. The last one was in 2023. This year we celebrate 10 years of Ealing Business Expo. The first one was in 2015. I know some of you were there. Thank you very much. So how this book came about. So what happened is we were preparing for this Descendants event last May, and also when we went to the Acton Carnival, the Hanwell Carnival, we started having like a lucky dip, and we were having quiz questions. We invited everybody in the CACE group to submit questions, and so if people answered the question correctly, they could get a prize. So they pick out a question. If they answered it correctly, they could get a prize. And I was writing these questions, and we were getting some, good ideas out of these questions. And then, they started to build up. And at that time, I was also writing the Izzy Stradlin quiz book. This is a whole different audience. But he was a guitarist for Guns N' Roses, which is a crazy band. But once he left that craziness, he went all reggae. He lived in Trinidad.
That's the connection.
He lived in Trinidad for a year. He recorded a second album.
I thought it was to do with your children. I was trying to figure out the connection.
Yeah, no, I was living around the corner from where he was recording his solo album. So I got all into his post Guns N' Roses music, and we used to have a Friday night quiz. We have a Facebook group with 10,000 people, and we used to have a Friday night quiz. And people got into it. Every Friday night there'd be like 300 comments, talking about the quiz questions. So then I started to think, okay, maybe having a book collecting these questions about, Ealing Black history would be useful to spread the information, because we could see the children's reaction to the questions. So many people were saying, I didn't know that. That is the most common response whenever we talk about these questions. I didn't know that. And when you go through, because if there are 100 questions in there, some of them are a bit, I don't know if you want to use the word padding. Maybe I padded out a couple of questions, but there is still quite a lot of information in there. I learned some things from it, and I will highlight a couple of them. So sources would be, of course, books, newspapers, mostly talking to people, and a lot of the information I would be able to go and try and verify the information. Looking at videos online was a great source. Ealing Libraries had so many videos that I could tap into to get some information. And it was using the internet that led me to Letitia Johnson. So who was Letitia Johnson? There's this website called Mapping Black London, which I came up against thanks to Joanna Judzinska, she was doing a Black History Walk in October. So she forwarded me this website, and what it does, it delves into church records around London from a certain, what were the years? Not since from 1560 to 1860, so 100 years, to find, because a lot of these records do explain where people's origins are from or what they're like. I think they've stopped doing that now, but for these years, and when I look through the the map, there were only 2 churches in the whole of Ealing that there were black people identified in this period. Now, when was it? 1560 to 1860, that's actually 1560, that's actually 300 years, sorry. 300 years. So in those 300 years, she found records. The people who did this website, they're actually students, university students, and they found records at St. Mary's Church in Hanwell and St. Mary's Church in South Ealing. Yes. And out of all of those, I found something that was really exciting. And I found although when I went back to check, this is where the bit comes in of me being a journalist and not being a historian. When I checked again this morning, they had added another record of somebody even older, a record that's even older, 1721, a 6-year-old child, black child, was baptized in the South Ealing Church in 1721. But it's International Women's Day. I've prepared my presentation, and we're going to talk about Letitia Johnston, because she was baptized in 1779. So her record is saying she was baptized at the church in 1779, St. Mary Ealing. Originally, they had her under the Hanwell St. Mary, so I'm not sure if they moved it because they realized, or if there was some confusion. We have at least 5 St. Marys in Ealing. It's tricky to remember which one goes where. We even have a new St. Mary's.
We've got a new one, a Syrian one just behind us.
You know, so what the latest record says that she was baptized at the church on St. Mary's Road going towards South Ealing. So I started to try and figure out what was her life like. You know, what was Letitia Johnston's life like? You know, was she like Dido Bell? Was she like, you know, was she a servant? Was she was she with royalty? And I do think in Ealing at that time, you know, that's when John Soane was just building up his Pitanga Manor. I think in Ealing at that time she was probably a African slave or servant person. I think she was just a regular person. So then I started trying to look at other records, and there's something on Ancestry that there's a Letitia Johnston in this area at that time. But I'm stuck because I don't have a subscription to Ancestry, so I can't do it. Anybody who does, that can be the next level. I'm going to talk to Jonathan Oates at Ealing Library. He can probably push this to the next level. And so this is the church, St. Mary's Church, and they're saying it looks the same way now as it would have looked when she was baptized there. And the question is, the question I'm trying to figure out is why did enslaved people think it was important to be, enslaved African people at that time think it was important to be baptized? I was just wondering if anybody...
Well, I remember when I did a research on West London and black history initially for the Labour Party, then I think it was initially for Brunel University for the Labour Party, and I think I told you I came across somebody called Tobias Pleasance, who was an enslaved, he's buried in Hillingdon around the 18th century, and he had to give evidence at a trial. It wasn't him who was the thief, but he was giving evidence in relation to some white gentry. Now, he was baptized, and I think what I got from that is it was to kind of dissociate any links these people of African Caribbean heritage had with Africa or the Caribbean. They came here as freed slaves, but they still hung on to certain traditions, some African pretensions. So by baptizing them, they were cleansing themselves and dissociating. I'm afraid it's very undertones, very racist, but so, and that way they could really be seen as being a part of that household. They were never really free of that servitude link, but it was just saying that they were open to be subservient to a Christian kind of,
That sounds like it. That sounds exactly
context.
Because I was, there's at that time, the late 1700s, they're coming close to the early 1800s. There was all the talk about abolition of slavery. When a slave ended up here, they would be. You can't be enslaved on English soil. If you travel here with your so-called master, he doesn't have any he can't own you if
Yes.
you're in England.
There's 2 seats here.
See, come here.
Hello.
Yeah, a couple more chairs. A couple more chairs.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
There's 3 chairs. Sorry, there's 3. There's 1 there, 2, 3. And I'll bring some more. I've got some more.
Fascinating.
That's all right. Right next to me.
Right.
That's all.
I'm going to we get you a chair.
And when I was reading the Mary Prince book, you know,
Yes, yes.
she came up here with her so-called owner, and he said to her, "You're free to go. You could go. You're in England now. You're in London. I can't say I own you." But he knew that if he turned her out, she would end up begging in the streets.
Right.
So because that was, can you get in there?
Thank you.
Because for her, because for her too, let me just get it to everybody. I like this one. It's so cozy.
It is like that lamp is like really fiery, fireside chat, isn't it?
It is. So her owner knew that if he turned her out on the street, that she would have to beg to get, you know, to survive, because she without references, without, you know, contacts or whatever, she would nobody would hire her. She couldn't go and get a work. She would have to go and live in the poorhouse or something. And if she found a way to travel back to the Caribbean, she would be immediately, you know, he wouldn't grant her, what's the word, manumission. He wouldn't give her her freedom. And she had a husband in Antigua, and he wouldn't let her go back to him. So, but eventually, that was the time when the Anti-Slavery Society, they used her story as an example to bring about the end of slavery. So people, we're talking about why were people getting it? We were talking about Letitia Johnson, somebody who lived in Ealing in 1779, and she got christened at South Ealing Church in 1779. So we're trying to figure out, I mean, she was old, she was 28, where's the thing? She was 28 years old. So why is she getting married? Why is she getting christened at age 28 years old? So I think it's because maybe she wanted to get married. Maybe as slavery was coming, she thought this was her chance to get out while she could, or if it was some kind of first come first. So they didn't know what was happening. You know, when you're in the midst of all of that, you just try and do anything you can. And maybe she was working in a household with children, and maybe the owners of the house said to her, "You need to be baptized because we're going to be going to church, and you want you to raise the children in whatever way." So these are just some reasons we were just discussing about why she might have got christened in that church. So that was just to give an idea of how the book came about. Just to go through quickly how the book is structured. So there are 100 questions. So the first, there's some answer sheets. So what I've done is I've cut out the answer sheets and go through it. You know, it takes about half an hour. I actually tested myself. And you go through the questions one by one.
It doesn't take half an hour, trust me. Us slower people, it takes more than half an hour.
Alright, that sounds good.
She's super intelligent.
You can do bit by bit. There are also 100 pictures in there of around Ealing. So there's Acton Carnival, there's things going on, Tudor Rose, we know where that is. You know, things going on. So current history mixed with older history. So this is the Southall Remembers plaques in Southall, and it's to give you an idea of what Ealing is looking like in 2025, because I think we might have to do a couple more editions of this, because when I went to see this guy with Grace last week, he said this is a start. Eric Huntley. Exactly. He said this is a start, and this kind of he has so much information in his head, and he says he's made notes. I don't want to trouble him to find the notes. I just want to see what he can remember.
Even he'll find the notes, but he's very, very on it.
He's got huge archives in this.
Well, this is it. This is it. And so you fill out the questions, and then when you get to the back, the answers are all there. But in the Kindle version, these links are live. So if you're interested in clicking through the links, but if you just want the link, just message me. There's another way to get this to come up on your phone. If you take a picture of the page, and you can change the text to a link, and change the text in a photo to text that you can copy and paste. It's a bit complicated, but
well, iPhone, you can just click on it in the photos. Did you know that? You can just click on a link. It's incredible.
You can paste the text.
Yes. Not only paste it, you can actually access it on the actual pictures. Yeah.
And then at the back, there's a list of there's 100 people that were mentioned, people and organizations. Grace, Michelle, people that we deal with every day in there. So you can quickly see which questions they were mentioned, and there are also pictures of just people in Ealing. And then right at the back, there's just a little bit of fun, a word finder of people, just to, if you start waiting for a train, just to keep, something of use.
I think this should go into schools.
Well,
have you had any commissions?
As you said that, Nicole, who she was an exhibitor at my expo a few years ago, she wants to buy 5 copies to give to schools, just to spread the word. But so I thought we could have a couple of teaser questions. See, Lashana Lynch of Jamaican heritage. She was born in Hammersmith, but she went to school in Acton. Which James Bond film did she star in? She didn't just act in it; she starred in it. She had a major role in it.
So she played 007, didn't she? She actually played 007.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's actually No Time to Die.
Oh, is it?
You
You didn't remember?
We've done it.
Oh,
It's gonna be your Christmas
We've
time.
gone through the question.
oh, you knew it.
Only because we've done it. You
I
know
didn't know that was your kind of film.
We haven't done all of it.
This is a bit longer.
Which one's this one?
I'm only focused on women because it's International Women's Day. And
Yeah,
we just want to talk
of course.
about women. Don't feel bad, the men in the room.
Oh no, it's okay.
Your time will come.
Dame Elizabeth Anyon Wu,
I
she's
know this one
mixed
anyway, but I'm going to keep
I don't
quiet.
know it.
Nigerian and Irish heritage. She's been living in Ealing for ages. Which
Actually, I
of these
didn't know
things
this one. I didn't know
did
it.
she present to the king in his coronation ceremony?
Yeah.
Remember when she walked in
Yeah.
with
Yes. Some
Florella?
sort of staff, yeah.
You
I
might
didn't-
have to guess this.
I
That is
didn't.
the
I
reason.
didn't know this, but I'm going to keep quiet.
Guess, because a lot of these.
Read them out. Read them out.
Okay, the scepter with dove,
Yeah.
the sovereign's orb,
Yeah.
the jeweled sword of offering, or St. Edward's crown.
I'm going to go for C. I don't know.
You're gonna go with C.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
C is always a good one, isn't it?
It's sovereign's orb. I think
I
C,
remember
was it
thinking,
jeweled sword of offering, I think is what Penny was holding up. So that might be ringing a bell.
Yeah, you know, from the Tory party.
Reading that.
Yeah.
St. Edward's crown, I think that is Camilla's crown. Or is it his crowning crown?
I don't know.
And scepter, I think scepter with dove is what Florella carried in. So,
Oh.
yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else that I can encourage you to. Of course, all proceeds go to CACE. You know,
That's amazing.
the
Thank
money
you.
that you spend on the book. If you're not ready to buy it today, you can take a flyer and scan it later and buy it from there. But the advantage of buying it today is that you get it right away. Here's my sales pitch. You can also get a signed copy.
Signed
of
copy,
it.
yeah.
You know,
Yes, fantastic.
custom message in it. But is there anybody I missed? Because I keep thinking I want to tap into people.
Well, I think the thing is, there's always going to be people because we know that there's people that so you can build on it. It wouldn't be fair to say now because I might think I think that we can always, because I can think of people that are not in there, but I just think you have so much to cover, and we just need to build on this, isn't it? We're all learning. It's a learning. But we've all got someone we might know, someone we don't know. That so. Yeah.
Who do you think?
Well, I would say, for example, I remember there was Laurie Agaro has done quite a lot around race equality, and then there's also Judy Wellington and the building in Hanwell.
Yeah.
There's also there's somebody called Chris Akabusu who used to play drumming in a lot of people can associate with Priory, and there was a friend of mine, in fact, God rest her soul, she was called Helen Lembanaka. She ran this audio African visual library called AFAL, and it was based Hawco House, which is on Horn Lane, just off the junction between Horn Lane and Stein House. Now, what is interesting about her, she was from Gabon, I only knew her because I was so pleased, by the way, to see Martha Lambert, a friend of mine who passed on. She'll be smiling in heaven. I was so pleased to see her in the book. Now, she contacted me and said, Helen, this woman is a writer and she's a storyteller. She would like you to tell stories to her book. I met Helen and I was so amazed. She went to Gabon and brought a lot of things back from Gabon, and she basically had a partnership with Liverpool Football Club. So a few of us, me, Laurie, her partner, we all literally travelled from London to Liverpool to do workshops. She had all these, we held up this train because she had so many suitcases. When we got them, we got into, it was Everton and Liverpool because they're close to each other. They had children from both schools, and the whole of, she opened up these cases. There were footballs, you could make a football out of palm. She had cars, and she just converted the whole place with information about Africa. The saddest thing is, when she came back to London, 2007, I got a call from her partner, and it was from her on her phone. And why is he ringing me at this time of night? And I thought, this is odd. Third time I picked up the phone, she died in her sleep. And sadly, a lot of those resources, they just got, never, you know what it's like. In fact, and it turned out she was a Radio 1, worked for the BBC, all this hidden history about her. Eventually they flew her, she was an attaché, and they flew her body back to Gabon. But her history has been lost. So I tell the stories in that book, Tales from a Gabon. She lived in Acton. I'll send you the information.
And
Ophelia, positive awareness. She died last year. Have you heard of Ophelia? No. It's partly because of her, how wappy. She used to help people who wanted to set up projects. And it was all about being mindful, being kind. So if you want to set up a project, you come to her. That's how I met John, actually. He was on her committee. So she would help people start up. And then she started doing mindfulness, positive awareness. And a lot of the mayors and Leader Julian Bell, they all used to attend her conferences. But when she passed away quite suddenly, again you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of history from Dominica. She was.
Oh, she's from Dominica?
Yeah.
Yes, well, let's keep in touch, right?
I'll give you some of the names.
Tell me. So if anybody
We all
else,
know somebody.
when you discover any
good to know.
little bits of nuggets like that, send it to me so I can include it, even if it's, you think it, like Martha Lambert, nobody knew who she was. But
Did
she
you
was
know
the
Grace Mugabe lived in Ealing Broadway? Yes, Grace Mugabe. Yeah, she lived in Ealing Broadway before her husband, she was in exile in Ealing Broadway. I'll give you some.
Yes, this is what Uncle.
And Lennox Thomas, Lennox Thomas, a psychiatric. He's connected with some SESIAC, some form of therapy. One of the first black psychotherapists. Associate, I think he was on Descendants Trustees. He died in the lockdown. Big black psychotherapist. Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for.
Yes, thank you
so much for your.
Thank you. It's amazing.
Ideas and so on. But keep in touch if you're here or anything. Let's go and have some tea and coffee out there.
It's amazing.